All right, hi everybody, and welcome to Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout, to our show, The Issues and Challenges in Today's Fire Service. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my co-host and Humpday Hangout partner and very good friend, Lewisville Assistant Chief Terry McGrath, and we have another great show lined up for you today. And before we go any further, as always, we mention this every show. If you have any questions for us today, hit us up on Twitter, and we'll do our best to get as many as the questions as we can. Sometimes we can't get to them all, but we'll try. But make sure you add hashtag FE Talk. Hashtag FE Talk for Fire Engineering, FE Talk, and we'll do our best. Today, Terry and I are hanging out with some good friends, fire service leaders, mentors, those who lead from the front and are exactly the kind of people you'd want to work with and for. Joining us today is author and instructor David Rhodes from Atlanta, Georgia. David has been a long time FDIC Advisory Board member, Fire Engineering Advisory Board member, Fire Rescue Advisory Board member, Editorial Advisory Board member, author of his Humpday SOS series, among other things. The logistics guy that makes everything happen for the hands-on training at FDIC. David's incredible. David was on with us last night. We're talking about Chief Brunacini. Captain Mike Baldree from the Flower Mound, Texas Fire Department. Those you know me know that Terry and I both brag on Flower Mound. Flower Mound has some great leadership from the top down to the bottom, and on the bottom all the way back up. They've got some great firefighters, some great people. It's the kind of fire department that when you're running a job, you smile when you see their guys. That's how I explain in class. They're the one department. Here they come. You smile because they don't care what the assignment is. They jump all over it and do a great job. We got firefighter John Copeland from Lewisville, Texas. John's a mentor. He's an Fire Academy instructor. He's a Marine. He's one of our favorites. He's definitely one of my favorites. If you've been in our classes, you've heard about it, about John several times. And we've got Assistant Chief Mark McNeil, another tremendous leader who's worked every rank in the fire service, the kind of guy that I know when I was fire chief, when you were looking to move people around, he was the captain, and then to see that people wanted to work for, the ones that they wanted to go and do that. So we've got David, we've got Mike, we've got John, we've got Mark, and Terry, myself. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Chief.
Today's topic, and we were just talking about this, guys, and we've been getting hit up on Twitter and Facebook already. It's something Terry and I wanted to talk about for a while. And it's just what it is, just how it sounds. Dealing with the bullies, the thugs, and the Facebook firefighters that are out there. And the Facebook firefighters, want to talk about that, would never say to your face, spout off, say disrespectful, horrible things that they would never say to your face. And again, probably haven't fought a dumpster fire, let alone anything else they're talking about. But again, we're talking about dealing with those who demean, harass, and make others miserable, and just the stuff that we have to deal with, unfortunately, sometimes in the fire service. David, I want to ask you first. Again, Terry and I were talking about you and your background early on, but you have a sneaky way with your Humpday. Explain the Humpday SOS. First of all, let's talk real quick about the Georgia Smoke Divers Academy, then we'll get to the question I've got for you.
All right. Yeah, I'm actually we're running our 54th smoke diver class right now here in Dalton, Georgia. And we started out with 42 candidates, and we're on day 4. We're down to 31. And they're on Wednesday, which is also, of course, Hump Day here at Smoke Divers. They're doing a big hose drill. They have 5 hoses to follow on 2 cylinders of air. They're actually doing Denver drill type deal inside fire and smoke, and some emergency survival procedures. We actually take them through how to survive if they have nothing but their air cylinder left. They can breathe off their air cylinder. So we're doing a lot of good stuff, a lot of stress inoculation, stuff that you can't get in a one-day class. It has to be something over 5-6 days. So today's the day where their body's really starting to break down, and we're teaching them how to tap into that over 40%, because when you think you're done, you're only at 40%. And so we're trying to get them up into that 50-60% range. And some tough guys. We got guys from all over the country here: Florida, Texas, Oklahoma. We actually have 9 from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and several from right around you out there, Rick. a couple of your former guys are here, I believe. So 72 instructors today and 31 students.
Well, it's a great program with a great reputation. People talk about it all the time, and it is a huge deal when you make it through that. I know that carries a tremendous amount of pride and a sense of accomplishment and all that. So a great program. We had to throw that out there before we get going. But David, where I was going with things, I want to start things off with you is your Hump Day SOS. Explain the concept behind it, how you came up with that. But you've got a very sneaky way of sending messages to people via your Hump Day SOS messages, and you know, the phrase, we said this before we went live, the phrase in your face is kind of overdone. It's like thinking out of the box is overdone, but it's very pointed sometimes. And you know, Paul Combs does it with his artwork, where you'll see one of our good friend Paul's drawings, and you laugh, you go, oh shit, that's funny stuff. And then you're on your way home and you go, hey, that he's talking about me, you know, that kind of thing. But David, the concept behind that and just sometimes the message you deliver are pretty awesome.
Yeah, the Hump Day SOS just sort of came as first started out as a blog on fireengineering.com, and then gained some popularity. And it's basically just sort of self-deprecating in a way, sometimes self-deprecating against the fire service, sometimes against myself, and just taking some common sense themes and sort of making fun of ourselves a little bit to prove a point that maybe we should be looking in a different direction or thinking a different way. We sort of get stuck in a rut sometimes, and I guess the success of it has been I sort of speak the language of the guys that are in the station. You know, they can relate to it, and because it's what everybody's talking about at the kitchen table when the executive staff or whoever's not around. It's the real stuff that's getting discussed, and it's the real way they feel about things. But I try to be balanced in that blame gets shared equally, because we're all guilty of all kinds of stuff. So I just sort of try to make light of it in a way that just makes you think, and if you do realize, hey, I'm that guy, or yeah, I've done that before, that probably wasn't the best thing to do, then that's kind of the success of it, I guess.
Well, and guys, we've all seen, I know earlier in my life when I was a kid and sports and stuff, you do things that you just, you know, they're just stupid. You're just, you know, it's part of immaturity and I guess growing up. But, you know, when you enter into the fire service, you take an oath. You put your hand up in most cases. You put your hand up, you become an oath taker. And we have an opportunity to do something pretty special, pretty honorable. And it seems like we can't go a day or two without hitting the internet or reading something or hearing about something where one of our own people, one of our own fire service family members does something that just puts us all in a horrible light, puts us, you know, in a bad, and I don't care where it's at, you know, it could be in, you know, Idaho where I was. If something happens there, it affects us in Florida. And what they do in South Carolina affects them in Illinois. We're one fire service, so I'm getting at. But, you know, I guess that's what I want to throw out to you is where do we start to kind of get to a point where we can get, I don't think we'll fix everything, but get to people to act their wage, if you'll act like an adult, and stop the nonsense when it comes to the bullying in the firehouse, the thugs. There's one thing to have, you know, like we've talked about before, you know, the rubber band around the hose, you know, the sprayer at the sink. And there's things that are just, you know, I've had people come up to me and go, Chief, will you tell them just to dump the bucket of water on me and get it over with? I want to fit in kind of thing. But I think as adults, we all know what is acceptable and what isn't, and where that line is. Mike, you know, Mike, you've got a great fire department. You have a lot of young firefighters that come to work for you. As a company officer, as a captain, how do you ensure that your guys are protected? And again, we're not talking about softening the fire service. We're not don't for any of our viewers. We're not talking about, you know, holding hands. We're talking about treating people the way they should be treated, with respect. And I know it's a two-way street, but Mike, what do you do from your end as a company officer to ensure that the conduct is appropriate and right in the firehouse?
Well, I mean, leading by example for sure. Showing the new guys, what's good, what's bad. Making examples of things like the Miami thing that just took place, and showing guys that, hey guys, you're a firefighter 24/7. That's one of the things we emphasize all the time. It doesn't matter whether you do it on duty or off duty. It's not going to say in the news, Joe Blow did so-and-so. It's going to say firefighter so-and-so. And that's kind of the big deal. I'm working on bringing up a document right now that we do of Welcome to Flomo. And it's the guy's first time in the fire station. And, we kind of say, hey, congratulations on what got you here. But, now it's time to buckle down. And talking to them about learning about their crews. So much of our job is it's 99% the fire station. We got to live with these guys. And one thing I always talk to them about is understand that firefighter next to you and know his wife, know his kids, know what his wife does, know what his kids do. And I think that in return gets respect between your crew members, and then you respect each other more, and it goes a long ways.
Well, you mentioned that book, Terry. You and I talked about this. St. Catharines, Canada, our good friends up there took what a lot of what you do in Lewisville to start people off on the right track, and they took and they created kind of, I think, Mike, where you're going with this, they created it's a probie book, if you will, and it's not just thou shalt do customer service. They get in your faith. They're like it's a great book, and they talk about, your mom and dad don't work here. You're an adult now, and they talk about their values and what's expected, kind of like that whole talk thing we used to do. Terry, you've talked before, first off, with Mark Richards, your division chief there, that the prior position you had, with the importance of doing backgrounds in the first place to hire the right people to keep that kind of some of these folks, that we're missing. I don't, it's so hard with an interview to kind of, some people may slip through the cracks, but you've said before, a good strong background is one of the best ways to keep some of the clowns out.
Well, I think I get asked a lot of questions of people that don't understand what we're looking or what we're doing in a background process. But, oftentimes, Chief, something comes up, and I use that as an example. Let's say somebody gets arrested at 20 years old for public intoxication. So you'll find, people in this department or most departments, there's a small section that will be, well, absolutely not, we shouldn't hire him if he can't act straight. And so when I look at something like that in someone's life, at 18, 20 years old, I think there's probably not anyone sitting on this panel that can't admit to the fact that we all didn't live perfect lives. We just didn't get caught. But in those moments in someone's life, Chief, for me, I want to know what they did after that. The guy that gets arrested for public intoxication at 18 and gets arrested at 20 and gets arrested at 22 and then tells me, well, I was out with some buddies, and what I gathered from that is you didn't learn your lesson. So, those are the things that we look at on the background side. We're not looking for the perfect individual, but we are looking for people that, number one, take responsibility and ownership for what they've done. And number two, they've learned from that mistake and they come out on the other end a better person for it. And so that is a character trait that I think will translate into a solid employee on down the line. I'll throw this down to John Copeland because, he's with college recruit classes. So you're getting a mix of people that may be 35 years old, go back to the academy because they're realizing that there's some employment opportunities, but you're also got the 18-year-old in there. And John's dealing with those guys every day, but he's in a very powerful position, and I think more powerful than anybody on this panel, because those people need to be taught the right way, and they need to be taught the nuance of the responsibility, how you're going to approach this job the first day when you're in here, but also how to take responsibility and be an adult when at 20 years old, 22 years old, we could all make that argument, but I'll let John speak to that.
He's absolutely correct. I have questions every semester. Chief Richards comes down and Chief McGrath comes down and gives a talk on one of my classes about what they need to do as far as the responsibility they need to take and how to fill out the application and that whole process. And when they leave, all the students say, I did this when I was 16. I did this. Is this going to kick me out? All the questions that he just stated, all the incidents that he stated. And I tell them the same thing. What did you do now?
Well, and John, you've having that impact. You know how far the whole duty, pride, honor goes in the Marine Corps. You haven't been a Marine, but you have always embodied. You have always. I mean, you've been doing this. How many years now? How many years?
Fixing to finish 26.
26 years. And you've been that way like the whole time, a leader, a mentor. Mark, you were saying it, all the young firefighters want to work with Cope. They want to work with John. And again, I'm not blowing smoke. You like I said, those that have been in our classes know we brag on John in our classes. That senior firefighter, that guy or gal, if you will, that gets things done. John's one of those guys. And you start this off in the academy. You can see it with what you're producing as a student, as a new firefighter, with their values right from the get-go. But I don't think you give them a chance. From day one, it's hammered into them on how they're going to live their life and how they're going to uphold the reputation of the fire service, right?
That's exactly right, Chief. And it's just, you're talking about where does it start? I mean, I have kids straight out of high school, just like you saying, I have 30-year-olds, and some of them don't know the difference of where it starts. And it really does start. I mean, they have to understand when they come to my class, it is no longer about you. And all your life up to this point has been a decision of what you want to do, what kind of car you want to drive, what do you want to eat for lunch. All these things have just been about you. But from here on out, it's no longer about you. It's about those people out there driving up and down the streets. It's about taking care of each other. And you talk about how do we stop the bullying and that kind of stuff. Well, if we're taking care of each other, and we have teamwork drills. Everything we do is about teamwork, about taking care of each other. From the test, the physical agility is what we do, where they have to actually physically carry each other or mentally carry each other every day, all day long. That builds that we have to take care of each other because we can't help those people if we don't take care of each other. So the bullying, we have people that probably shouldn't be in that class, and we have superstars that are absolutely built for this job. They take care of those people. They take care of those weaker ones. They watch out for them. They come to fire service, they're going to be the same way. They're going to watch over everybody, even as new people.
Well, and there's a difference between the academies. Unfortunately, there's a couple out there. I'm obviously not going to say where they're at, where they actually live by the whole bullying and the thuggery and, the yelling and sit down and shut up and all this stuff that just, you don't have to do that stuff to still enforce, like what you're saying, John, the values. I brag. I talked about hiring Sarah Stockton in Trophy Club as a firefighter paramedic. And when she sat down her interview, one of the key things she said was, when we talked about who had the most influence in her life and in her career, she said, my mentor, John Copeland. One of the things she said on the academy, John, that you teach, one of the greatest points she said the greatest thing about the academy, the thing that had the most impact on her that she remembers is, at first she had a hard time with the push-ups. And she said her entire class wouldn't let her finish last. That's something Mike Baldree loved too. Mike's a fitness nut. They wouldn't let her finish last when it came to the push-ups. They wouldn't let her finish last. And I thought that was what an incredible, I've never heard that part before. I've heard people, we all did two things together and we did this. But she said they wouldn't let me finish last. And by the way, she blew the physical out of the water. She was incredible. I mean, she embarrassed a lot of other people how well she did the physical over there in Trophy Club. Mark, how important as an assistant chief, you and Terry are partnered up there working for a great boss, Tim Tittle. Tim defines loyalty. I brag on him as well. 12 years we spent together. How important, Mark, is it, number one, for the leadership within the organization to set the right tone when it comes to preventing the bullies and the thugs from jumping in there, and for how about policies and procedures? They have you've got a great human resource department. How important is it to have the steps, the policies in place ahead of time? Because I get a lot of chiefs, a lot of guys go, well, I'm like, no. This should have all been taken care of beforehand. How important is it to have that platform to work from, to have the pecking order?
It's critical. If you didn't have the policies in place, it's easy when we see things happen to catch them early and to deal with them. When you have those policies, then the backing. If you don't have that, you can't. It's hard to do anything about it, or discipline can get appealed and turned over. And I mean, you're the one with egg on your face, but those things are crucial. And then to push it down to your leadership, that's it either makes or breaks with the officers in the station, the senior firefighters in the station. If you don't get their buy-in and have the right people there, this is never going to work. And I go back to what Copeland said with, it's no longer about you. We stress that, and it's the same message you've been preaching, that when you put this uniform on, you without doing anything other than buttoning your shirt up, you've all automatically got the respect that has been earned over years, countless years, by people that are no longer even doing this job. And you have such a responsibility to that organization, to this profession, to conduct yourself in a way that is honorable. And when you do that, you're taking care of each other. You're responsible not only to the citizens, but to each other. And we stress that with our new people. And then on the flip side, you've got to enforce it with your people, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to mess up. And, if you've got people like my last stint as a company officer, I had Copeland and Mark Richards as my senior firefighters.
Oh, my God.
They didn't need me in the station, other than the seat didn't have anybody in it if I wasn't there. So that makes the job really easy. But things get taken care of, and you can rely on those. And they hear things that even when the company officer's in the station, there's things that he doesn't hear. It goes behind the scenes, and they're on top of that stuff. And that eliminates the nonsense.
Well, that's a great message. And you mentioned something I want to go back to David about. David, you talked about, you mentioned earlier about looking for patterns. One incident, unless it's a horrific one. I mean, I think two things here. One is, David, I think some people go along for the ride. I know as a chief officer, as the fire chief since 1997, when you're dealing with the discipline, or when you look at it, and Terry, you used to do my IAs for me, like Mark does for you and Mark now, Mark Richards, is when they bring you everything, you look at it, and there's 5 people involved. 2 are the ringleaders, and 3 just went along for the rides. But David, you mentioned something about multiple incidents. Get into that a little bit more about. I mean, it's one thing to, I got caught up in something stupid. Let me do my penance. Let me get past this. I won't ever happen again. To versus the repeat offender that you see that MO, that's them, man. They're a bully, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I actually got a firsthand lesson in this when I was doing some stuff with the Georgia Fire Academy basic firefighter program, and they had inmate firefighters, and we actually trained the inmate firefighters, and they were able to serve as firefighters in the institutions and stuff. And so I'm riding out to South Georgia to go do a test of a basic class, and I'm talking to the coordinator who is in charge of all the inmate firefighter programs in Georgia. And I'm just young. I'm probably only like 22, 23 years old at the time. And I said, so how does this program work? I guess most of the guys that are firefighters, what are they like in for writing a bad check or some petty theft or something like that? And he said, oh no, most of them are murderers. And I was like, what? And he said, one-time murderers, usually crimes of passion. They did it one time, they turn themselves in, they have remorse, and they're doing their time. They're model inmates. He said the ones that we won't let in are the petty thieves, the burglars, because once a thief, always a thief. They're always in the system. They come in, they get released, they're right back in, and it's just a never-ending cycle. And that's a very extreme look at a comparison of society. But the same thing as I think it was somebody brought up like a public drunk when you were 21 or 18 or something like that. That was a one-time occurrence. But if you're looking at a history of somebody, whether it's before you hire them or in a disciplinary process, the person that has 4 or 5 arrests for various things and all, you can see a pattern develop that speaks to their character and their lack of self-discipline. And all of us as officers highly want self-discipline of everybody. We don't want to be the disciplinarians. We want people to self-discipline themselves and to stay on track and to want to be doing the good stuff. And that was an interesting interesting lesson. Gordon Graham talks about the value of the background check. And when you see those multiple offenses, and I guess as a fire chief too, when you get a case brought before you and, this guy's file's extremely deep with all these little things, it's a bad egg, there's always a chance that somebody was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That happens, but that file won't be very thick.
Well, and Mike, you were getting into something. John, Copeland was talking about how, we represent them, which we say all the time. It's about those people out there. It's not about us. It's about, you became a public servant when you put your hand up. Mike, you're talking about, it doesn't matter. We were saying this before, it doesn't matter what name's on your helmet. You represent all of us. And there's that honor that goes along with this, that unless we had people like John Copeland in the Fire Academy, and David, you do a lot of it with the smoke divers class, even you got experienced guys coming through there. You're teaching teamwork and honor. Mike, how huge is it, again, to step up and be the boss? Let me ask you this. How important is it for you as a captain to have a senior or a firefighter, not even a senior firefighter, step up and stop some of the crap going on in a firehouse for you? To have that informal leader, we're going to call him, step up and do that stuff for you.
Well, man, that's huge. Kind of like Chief Greaser said one day, hey, don't make me make a decision on this. Don't let it get to me, because if it gets to me, then I have to make a decision on it. So if that senior firefighter or that firefighter in the station can control a lot of that, then it keeps things at peace and it eliminates a ton of issues. I think Chief McGrath hit the nail on the head. It's their willingness to show ownership for what they did. And I think you get a genuinity of that when you interview them, and you can see, hey, do these guys really have regret and remorse, and did they really do something to fix it? And I think that's the key, is the ownership of it. If they messed up, okay, do you own it? And what have you done to fix it? And I think that right there goes probably the longest way.
Well, Terry, we're not being overly sensitive, are we, about this? I mean, it's about just doing what's right.
No, I don't ever look at this as a sensitivity issue. One thing that comes to mind, and there's a powerful word that will carry a couple of different scenarios with it, and that's momentum. And we want to see a lot of momentum when it's working the right way, but that momentum can bring you down a dark hole. And I think any organization, if you look back at your own internal problems, there was a lot of momentum that had, happened either in the course of a day or over the course of a couple of weeks. And somewhere along the line, somebody who should have stepped in and been a voice of reason and disrupt that momentum and get everybody refocused. And so I think it builds upon itself. I don't think it's a matter of sensitivity. I think it's a matter of this is a professional career. We need to act like professionals, and we need to ensure that those around us act like professionals. One of the things I tell people we hire here, and I've heard this argument where professional sports, a football player, basketball player gets in trouble, and then he makes the comment, well, I'm not a role model. You are a role model. And the day you decide to be a firefighter or police officer, you're a role model. And you have to act accordingly. And that means, in my opinion, you give up some freedoms that other people have. If I don't get along with my neighbor, I can't stand in the front yard and act like an idiot and get into a screaming match with him. Because you know what? Everyone on the street knows I'm a firefighter. And like was mentioned earlier, they're not going to segregate me. I live in Flower Mound, so I can't go over there and act like an idiot and think that that's just going to come back to Flower Mound. It's going to come back to Lewisville. And so, you know what? When you get in this profession, you don't get the liberty that a transmission mechanic does. Because you decided to do something and you put yourself in a position that people look to you, and they need to trust us. They need to know that we have their best interest at heart, and that means controlling your emotion. That means acting professionally both on and off duty, and that carries over to your Facebook page too. And I tell guys that, listen, you can't put your background page on your Facebook is you standing in front of the engine with your face all blacked out and I'm a Lewisville firefighter, and then you go on some rant down there, some homophobic rant about, you know, something that you feel very strongly about. You can't believe that one doesn't have something to do with the other. It absolutely does. And unfortunately, you know, you kind of have to live your life every day, just like you're riding around on one of our fire trucks. That's the way I view it. And, but you know, there's going to be people that disagree with me, and that's fine too.
Well, and here's something I've noticed. People, David, this is something, Mark, the people that are the ones that'll make the comments that, you know, well, we need to send people. I see this all the time where we'll talk about doing what's right and getting the bullies out of the firehouse. And someone will come back with, well, we got to send these new guys, these new kids, these new guys and gals to, if we have to go to sensitivity training, they need to go to, you know, strength training in the way of putting up with this stuff. They got to be hardened and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, they don't. And Terry, you said this. I want to play off a couple things is, yes, you're right. There's a whole aisle full of toys at Toys R Us dedicated to a firefighter. You want to see what you mean to a kid. There's a whole, no disrespect. I've said this 1,000 times. No disrespect to the delivery truck, but there's not a whole bunch of UPS trucks, you know, and kids don't go, hey, let's play UPS guy. Hey, Mr. UPS. They don't point at the UPS truck. They point at us, you know, and there's a whole aisle full of toys. They don't play dress-up delivery guy. They play firefighter. That's why we're in the little kids' books, and you're right. Allie, you're right. And Cope, you guys do it in the academy. You do it, especially with your new people. The moment you put your hand up, you gave up a lot of your rights. Just like you said, Terry, you can't be the drunken buffoon in the street fighting with your spouse. You can't, I don't care if you have a T-shirt on or not. Once you become one of us, you got a whole, you can't be America's heroes one minute and the village idiot the next. It doesn't work that way. And again, you know, you said something about Facebook, and I want to jump on that a little bit too. And throw this out to you guys in general. I don't know how you feel when somebody posts a video. I'll just pick that one. Somebody posts a video of a fire. It could be theirs or someone else's. I'm amazed, and I know Bill Carey is with Firefighter Nation, and Pete Parochial is with Fire Engineering. I'm amazed at the comments that you see that people who call themselves brothers and sisters, brothers, you know, this whole brotherhood thing. There's a her, my brother. People, I'm amazed at the anger, the horrible things they say. Forget the cursing. We can put up a cursing. I mean, I'm amazed at the stupid comments people post. It's one thing to say, you know, light of the cancer awareness, you know, everybody's pushing this stuff, so forth. I'd rather see a head of face pieces on sooner versus, you know, I did a blog, and I'll throw this out there. I did a blog for Bill for Firefighter Nation. First one was 150 years of tradition unimpeded by progress, the ultimate insult. It's a poster, not a line. It was a poster from Backdraft. Now understand, my best friend, best man at my wedding was one of the two Backdraft brothers. My wife was in Backdraft. It's a great movie. All right. I have great friends. Chicago is a very professional fire department. One of the most progressive I know. But every time somebody does something bad or stupid, you see people go, see, 2,000 years or 190 years or whatever. And then I look at our apparatus floor and I see the progressiveness with our apparatus, with how we get dispatched, with paramedicine, with everything. Mike, you're wearing a tactical medic patch on your shoulder. Where we're at in the fire service, and to say 150 years of tradition unimpeded by progress is the ultimate insult. When I'm talking about, don't insult firefighters. I think they're the most progressive people I know. And like I said, Chicago is one of the most progressive fire departments I know. But how do we get to a point? I mean, the nastiness, Mike, you guys run a very, very good, great, and I guess it's a policing thing, but what do we do, Terry? I mean, I'm just throwing out there, guys, everybody, David, Mark, John, Mike, what do we do to stop some of the just stupid nonsense that goes on? I don't know if we can stop it, but I don't know. I guess I'm just venting, you know, about the social media stuff.
I think a lot with social media. My wife does it. She's great on social media, and when she gets into different conversations with people, and she sticks straightly with facts, you know. And I think if you stick to just facts when you're posting on these pages, or just look at, you know, I mean, we're all very knowledgeable, but just go with facts, not interpretations. I think that takes a lot out of it right there. But as far as how we stop it, I don't know if we can stop it with fake profiles and the keyboard warriors, I mean, you're sitting behind the keyboard, you're not face to face with anybody. So what accountability is there? And until there's an accountability for what that person says, then I'm not sure you can stop it.
Well, and David, I mean, your thoughts? I mean, you do a lot on social media. You know, again, and I agree with you. I think I even said it, I don't think we can control it, but it's just so frustrating. I guess the message from all of us should be, if you call yourself one of us, if you want to, you know, wear the T-shirt, the baseball hat, and have the tattoos and the stickers on your truck and the uniform, and call yourself a firefighter, you guys all talked about earlier. There's a certain, you got to bring some honor. You got to bring something to the table when it comes to it. And to go off on our own people, is our own family, our fire service family, in a nasty way, is just, I don't know. David, what do you think?
Yeah, the first thing is to set the example, and you know, don't engage in some of that type of stuff. Got some very good friends that get in some highly big disputes on the internet and stuff, and I've told them, you know, 100 times, it's like, you know, say what you want to say, put your stuff out there, whatever, and let it stand on its own. And if people start commenting on it, you know, you monitor the comments, but you don't need to reply. As soon as you start replying, there's no emotion in text or emails or Facebook posts. That's why they invented the emojis and all that stuff, to let somebody know when you're joking or winking or what have you. And if you engage in it, then it's no different than the major league umpire when the coach runs out. You know, the coach is mad and he's got about an 80% chance of getting thrown out of the game. But the way that umpire responds to that coach can either diffuse the situation or make it worse. And, you know, you've seen it 100 times. The umpire just takes it for a second and then the coach goes on, or the umpire starts fighting back. And there's certain key words, of course, that you're going to get thrown out on. But just don't engage, first of all. And then the other is, you know, there's a difference between being critical and providing feedback and just being absolutely mean. And there's a lot of folks that, of course, they're hiding behind the keyboard, and they probably haven't done half the things that the person who posted a video or the department that's posted, but they've always got something to say that's negative or whatever, and you don't know the whole story from the video. I rarely will comment on a video ever, because one, you can't see but one small little side of what's going on, and it's in the company officer book, you know, the X and Y. One thinks that everybody's out to get one over and do something wrong, and the other one trusts that you're doing something right and gives you the benefit of the doubt. And we got to give more people the benefit of the doubt. And instead of taking the lazy way out, which is to throw your comments, if you do have some concerns about an incident and somebody did something, instead of throwing it up on the Facebook post or whatever, pick up the phone and call them and talk one-on-one. Have a conversation with them and find out what happened, because you just can't see, you can't get the whole picture from a one-sided video or a picture or anything else. So.
Well, David, and my buddy John Salka, Chief John Salka, there was one incident where he had commented on something, and the chief came back and said, he goes, John, that's not what happened, and all this. And he actually got back on. He says, look, he didn't say anything nasty. He just commented, like you said, it's one, you're looking at one side of things. You don't know the whole story. You don't know, you know, because they didn't get water right away. It's one thing to watch somebody not help pull hose, but there's a whole lot of things. Some of the best. I've stood there. I used to say that to Gary Applemark all the time when he would be running a fire. Excuse me. And I would just look. I would say one phrase. I'd say, "We're better than this." That's all I have to say is I'd look and go, "We're better than this." But David, you brought something up that my daughter, Terry Andrea, you and I have talked about this. One of your detectives over at the PD actually saved. She saved my daughter's life. My daughter went through a horrible, god-awful bullying thing in middle school, and I can't believe somebody once went after my wife about that, about her not being my daughter not being strong enough. Anyway, one of the best pieces of advice, David, that Andrea gave to my daughter was, don't provoke the difficulty. That's the phrase she says the DA looks for when it comes to, don't, you know what, don't respond to the text messages, don't come back with FUs, don't with make, you know what, ignore it. And it's hard. Oh my God, it's so hard. The easiest thing to do is do this. Don't provoke the difficulty. and I guess in light of just talking about the passing of Chief Brunacini, a lot of people used to make comments about one of his many phrases was be nice, you know, and I think some of the people that attack other people are just not happy themselves. You know, we've talked about, Terry, all the years with all the IAs you did for me. Sometimes we had some bad, you know, and I know I wasn't liked by people because I stood up and said, nobody's going to do this stuff anymore. I guess where I came from, if you went out and physically hurt a firefighter, I mean, really, I said this when I was there. I'm like, you would have got your ass kicked off. Somebody would have found you off duty. You don't do that to a firefighter. You don't hurt. And I've said this, and everywhere I go, and I know you, this entire, you hurt somebody under the guise of an initiation or over a hazing incident or whatever. Hazing's technically, I found this out in court, is a college drinking thing, but we know what hazing is. You should have your ass kicked out of the fire service permanently. We tend to transfer or rehire bullies. They get fired or they leave one place, and another place gives them a chance. Then they get fired and they leave there. They, you know, it's kind of like, you know, oh, I don't want to say that, I'll get in trouble with the churches. Anyway, it's kind of like where, you know, instead of prosecuting or doing something and say, look, you're not cut out for the fire service, we just keep rehiring the same thugs and bullies. I'm not, David, going off with not giving someone a second chance, but it goes back to that pattern thing you said before. John, how long does it take to get your butt kicked out of the academy you teach for? How many instances do you guys put up with of nastiness or whatever? You know,
It will depend on the level, but it can be immediately you're removed. We haven't had that situation yet. We're pretty upfront about it. We're very upfront about it. What will get you removed from the fire academy?
Well, exactly, Mark. You don't put up with it. I don't, Mike. I've watched you. Like I said, you're another one of those examples of the captain everybody wants to work for. But I think a lot of this has to do with you're very team oriented. You see it. First of all, I love your posts with your family. You're an incredible family man. Mark, people used to say that about Daryl Brown on his evals when Daryl was the chief in Grapevine. When he was a captain, Mark, I would see people say their response. They go, "I hope to be half the father that Daryl Brown is." Mike, I see you as a parent and how you lead and how you live your life for your wife and your children. I see how you are when it comes to the sports. You know, not just the working out thing, but the whole team atmosphere. And I think some of that has a lot to do with it too, because you've taken it in a good way. There's a lot of people that get into there's a lot of unfortunately people that come from athletics, from sports teams that end up as the bullies and stuff because they kind of were brought up in that whole punishment thing with the football coach and stuff. But you tend to set the tone right off the bat.
Well, I love team sports. Played softball with yourself and Chief McGrath as well, and I think firefighting is a team sport. I think when you get into the conversation between engine companies, truck companies, and rescue companies, it takes us all coming together to put the fire out, and it takes us all coming together to do the job. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think it comes from how we were raised, from our parents, and how that was instilled in us. I was instilled by my father, who worked extremely hard to provide for his family. And I feel we owe it to the new guys coming in to show them that working hard pays off in the end. But the team effort is by far, and that's when, I talked earlier about sitting down with your crews at the kitchen table. I like to have a thing called family time after dinner. Sometimes you got to rein the rookies back in a little bit because they want to jump up and clean dishes. And I'll say, hey guys, y'all got to sit around the table for a few minutes. You learn so much about each other. I kind of talked about a little bit at the beginning, and you understand what's making that person tick. Is that person going to church on Sunday, or is that person going out to the bars on Friday night? knowing what that person's about, I think helps you relate to them. And then you can all talk and get on the same level and be on the same page together. And when you can get your whole crew on that same page, then, man, there's nothing's going to stop you.
Well, and exactly, their family life. And, you know, David and I, we've been with fire engineering a long time, FDIC, and, you know, the stage is still set up, David, with the kitchen table, because that's where the information that, you know, I've written, you know, some forts for some cookbooks, and I've said some of the best experiences in my career have been at the kitchen table, you know, and nowadays I know with families and two incomes and all kinds of things and competing demands, it's hard, but I think you're exactly right, Mike. When you don't sit down and break bread together, when you don't sit down and talk, when you don't sit down and have those conversations, especially in our world, in the fire service world, I think we're missing out. And I know, David, that was always key. I mean, long time, you know, chief officer, company officer, union president, David, I know what you did to invoke that kind of, you know, I think just you, and I'll just say, it's just being from Georgia. Georgia is a very family-oriented state, values-oriented state. There's a lot that aren't, or some that are kind of, they won't let you say under God with the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. But you've been, that's been your way of life as a boss for a long time.
Yeah, you know, if you're built to help people, then you're, you know, I think there's a difference in trying to change somebody versus helping somebody. I always hate when people try to change you. Oh, I'm going to change him and turn him into something, what have you. You know, you kind of accept people for who they are, look for the good, and then shore them up in the weak areas, just like we were all shored up in our weak areas. And definitely being a company officer, being a battalion chief, whatever level you're at, I mean, you've got to have that mentor mentality. And it's not that you know everything, but we didn't get where we were by not having folks carry us along and show us the way. And so we have to do that for the other folks. And that's as big a part of it as teaching somebody forcible entry or how to cut a roof or how to stretch a line. It's you have to teach them how to be.
I think that, and David would have to speak to this, but I have to believe that a lot of that week-long program in smoke divers is about instilling confidence in people, right? So you stress them, you push them to a limit, but you're also proving to them that they're capable of maybe more than they thought. But at the end of the week, they leave there with a tremendous amount of confidence. Every single person at every, you know, at Mark and I's level as assistant chiefs, I don't have a lot of interaction with our guys, but I need to give someone the tools to succeed, but I need to also instill in confidence in anyone. And I think the most important level that comes into play is that new person coming in a fire station. Because we can have the fun and games, Chief, and when you talk about, well, fire service isn't what it used to be because, you know, we don't duct tape someone to a flagpole and you know, in their underwear and soak them down with water when it's 30 degrees. And that's what we did 30 years ago. But I think there's nothing that hurts a person worse than stripping them of their confidence. This job, the job of a police officer, there is an extremely high rate of failure. I don't think that has to be pointed out to anybody that's not in this line of work, that you understand the cost that comes along with this job. And if you come in here and you are scared to death, and I mean scared to death because of how you're treated, scared to death because of atmosphere, scared to death because of that momentum, you're not thinking clearly, you're not capable of operating at a level that you have to operate at. And, you know, it's a little bit different when you go into a smoke diver training because I signed up for this and I kind of understand what I'm fixing to get myself into. But when you walk in this door for the very first time and you've got a station officer, you've got a couple of senior firefighters, just those firefighters that do a real good job of needling and poking fun and kind of building up those barriers. You got a recipe for disaster, as Gordon Graham says. You got your problem laying in wait. And that's going to be that person that, you know, I worked with a Dallas police officer that shot and killed a guy 3 weeks out of graduating from the academy with a training officer. There's not, I don't know what the statistics on that would be, that you put every single recruit in that particular situation that he would have done the same thing that that officer did. But one of the things that he told me was he felt very comfortable with his training officer and felt like when he got out of the car, he was capable of making the decisions that he needed to make. The fire doesn't know how many years you got on. They don't care anything about your training and none of that matters. But if you don't have the mental capacity and that fortitude to come in and operate at the level we need you to operate at, and a lot of that has to do with the culture that you walk into the station and you're presented with.
Well, and Mark, let me ask you, you and Terry are, like I said, you and Terry and Tim are the executive staff there. We mentioned policies earlier, good procedures and policies regarding, and like I said, I love to work in Lewisville. I tell people all the time, where you work under a place where if you violate someone's rights or you lie or you steal, you're done. You're done. You're just out the door. You're done. But let's get back. How about the social media end of things? How important is it to have? I know Lewisville's had a very strong imaging and recording policy, and it was kind of tucked away in the EMS section because of HIPAA, because when we did that, it carried a little bit more weight to it. But how important is it to have those policies regarding a firefighter's conduct on social media?
It's huge. I like Dave Statter, and he always has the SMACS, the social media assisted career suicide syndrome. It's unbelievable. I'm not a big social media person. Chief McGrath is our leader in that, both in keeping us in line and following that. But some of the things that come out of that, it's crazy. And we spend a lot of time. I hit on it with the new hires. Chief McGrath spends a good bit of time with our new hires in drilling in. This is what we expect of you, and this is what happens if you violate this. And your social media, both on and off duty, it has implications what you post. And but having the policies, that we use them, and we have to use them for our discipline. But on the front side and the proactive side of that is it sets the tone for a department to know what is expected from the top. And as long as you have those expectations in place, and then when somebody gets out of line, if you back it up by following through, then that helps set the tone that kind of filters through the department and can change them.
Well, and I just helped. I dealt with a fire department not too long ago where one of their members posted something, a personal Facebook page. I'll just say went on to a newspaper's Facebook page in Charleston, South Carolina, and where we had a coward walk into a church. Just what happened in Texas recently, and kill innocent people. This firefighter got on this Facebook page and said that young man should be commended, and kind of was surprised at what happened, the fallout afterwards. It is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Well, it's one of the stupidest everything I saw posted, but you can get on your social media feed, your personal feed, and you can talk about healthcare issues, gun control, whatever you want. The moment you start taking things to a level where you start attacking your own city, department, saying, a lot of young fire, I do a lot of consulting all over. David, you do too, all over North America. And I tell you, it used to be dependency problems were like the biggest one you go deal with grievances and appeals and stuff. Now it's people that just can't seem to keep that finger from pressing send. They post stupid stuff and you go, what were you thinking? And I've had people say, well, it's my freedom of speech, right? Well, you can say, we had Dave Statter on our radio show. Dave Statter said, you can say whatever you want. You're just not going to have a job anymore. And the whole act, that whole amendment was placed there to protect you from the government, not from the consequences of your speech. That's right, from the attorneys we work with. So I ask guys all the time, so would you be willing to walk up to your mayor, your chief, or whoever and say, screw you, you scumbag, M&F, and all this stuff, drop all the words, and they go, well, no, that'd be insubordination. Okay, all right, bad example. How about you mail it to them in a letter? Well, no. Well, okay, another bad example. How about you email it to them? Well, okay, so 3 bad examples. Hey, I got one. Send it to them in a text message. Well, no. Okay, so what makes you think it's okay to enter upon a password-protected social media platform and say for the world to see? You're wrong. Don't do it. I had somebody the other day say, would you be okay if your mom read it? I used to say, how would you feel if it ended up on the front page of the newspaper? I kind of like the one. If you're a good person, then you love your mom. You know, how'd you feel if your mom read it? So, hey guys, we're climbing this. I told you this. Terry and I always talk about how fast this hour flies by. We both think it's very important to kind of wrap up today with your kind of thoughts and maybe your advice. And start with John Copeland. Again, folks, if you're just tuning in, John's one of the most incredible senior firefighters you'll ever work with in the way of a mentor and a leader in the firehouse. He's also an academy instructor that's incredibly respected and admired by a lot of the candidates. I'm not trying to embarrass him. I'm just stating fact. But John, your advice to that new to the academy class, for day one academy, your advice regarding what we're talking about today to these new people.
Well, as far as just the social media part, I actually tell them if you want to get rid of it, that'd be a great idea. All the way together. Just delete your Facebook, Snapchats, whatever the new Instagrams just don't have it. Of course, not everybody's not going to follow that. So what you post is extremely important. Just about the whole thing we were talking about, you're 24/7. You're all the time firefighter. We've had incidents here where I've seen posts, and it hasn't been anything tremendous. It's just been somebody not liking Tom Brady and calling him names, some pretty vile names on his Facebook page. Well, that has to be called out immediately. And so it starts from the very inception of that before it grows any bigger, and you're calling out other departments on the way that they operate.
Instilling those values right from the beginning. We had somebody post on our Twitter, our feed, and I've been trying to get to some of those, kind of throwing these out there as sideways questions, but one of the comments from Twitter was, nothing hurts a person worse than stripping them of their confidence. Another comment was, when you're tasked with making life-death decisions, confidence is paramount. Not arrogance, confidence. All right, confidence is build up your firefighters with the support and training and that they need. Mike, next to you, buddy, very well-respected company officer, a mentor. You work for a great, I'll say it again, great fire department. What advice do you have coming? Let me take it. How about to a company officer, new company officer? Let's have Mike Baldree give some advice on all the bullying and everything else.
Willing to have the hard conversations. Those are the things that we don't want to talk about. We live with each other, but you're willing to have that hard conversation. We brought Jeffrey Tumlin in over here to Officers Academy the last 2 years in a row. And it's how to have that conversation, how to sit down with that person directly, quickly, and to the point, and not drag it out. But having those hard conversations is, I think, one of the most difficult things that we face as company officers.
Excellent, excellent. Mark, you do a lot of promoting. You do a lot of promoting of company officers. Tell us about that conversation you would have with that new captain in Lewisville when it comes to whether it's station conduct or, and unfortunately, we're no different than anybody else. We've had some issues in Lewisville we had to work through that I actually think made us stronger rather than make us weaker, because we spun them into a positive, not the other way like some people do. What advice do you give to that new company officer you're promoting in Lewisville?
I usually sit down and tell them what I did wrong early in my career. I was one of those that I like to lead by example. But, I thought just a little peer pressure. I expected everybody to act like adults. And most of the time they do. But you're going to have every now and then somebody that steps up and doesn't want to do that. And like Captain Baldree said, you've got to be willing to address it. And you're the one, you put the bars on, you chose to take that test and take that position. And you've got to be willing to step up and say, and be the one to draw the line and say, no more. This doesn't happen. It's not put arm around them and say, I understand. It's no, this isn't going to happen. And that's hard for a lot of our guys. We're family in there, and we don't want to be the bad guy. We want somebody else to be the bad guy. When you put on those bars, you've got to do it. You've taken the oath. You raised your hand and said, I'll do this job. And you have a responsibility not only to the department, but to those guys that you work with, all of them. And you've got to be that person. Lead by example, but step up and say something.
That's an awesome point, because I know I dealt with a situation where an actual acting captain was the one, when it was made aware of something, questioned that new firefighter. A new firefighter told him what happened, and he said, I've got to bring this up the chain. The new firefighter was afraid, which I think that brings up a whole other show about how we need to protect our people from being afraid to do what's right, but he did the right thing. I thought, I was like, God, 10 years, I think I failed here. And I remember Donna Terry telling me, no, you did. The system actually worked this time because one of your acting officers stepped up and did the right thing and reported it up the chain and so on and so forth. David, you teach all over North America. Besides your long time as a union president, as a, like I said, firefighter company officer chief, well, you deal with people all across the country and you see this stuff here and in Canada, all overseas, everything. But your advice, what do you have? I guess let's do a SOS, a Humpday SOS. What would be your advice if you're writing one right now to give some advice regarding the bullying and whether social media, stupid stuff, or the stuff in the firehouse?
Right. Well, social media is absolutely fabulous. The FBI loves it because they're solving more crimes. People give you a tremendous look inside their lives. Every fire department should be using it as a background check to find out who these folks are ahead of time. I mean, giving somebody a keyboard in a dark room to hide behind is better than 6 shots of Jameson. You know, their true selves come out. Obviously, if you're smart enough, you can set things up to deceive. But every time a new form of communication has come out in the last 200 or 300 years, and probably all the way back, there's been huge controversy. You know, when books started and people were able to express their opinions, you know, we had book burnings and we banned books from libraries, and we still kind of do some of that stuff today. But social media is just another form of communicating. It can be extremely positive, but we should use it to our advantage. We spend a lot of time developing policies of what not to do and all that stuff. But I think in another 10, 20 years or whatever, it'll be the norm. Everybody will be using it like every second to communicate. We'll figure out a way to use it to our advantage. And definitely, you know, whether it's social media or a class you're teaching or whatever, you know, the goal here is to set people up for success. And if you use whatever platform you have to do that, if it's social media, then use it for positive stuff, you know, use it to get good words out there, promote people's ideas and new technology and things like that, and stay away from the pettiness, because the same people who get in fights on social media about stuff, you know, just say it bluntly, they're the same assholes that get in fights in the fire station and everywhere else. I mean, you can't disguise it. It is what it is, as they say. It is what it is.
A thief marks his own tools first. I had a great boss tell me years ago that. I'm like, God, it is what, right? A thief marks his own tools first. You know who they are right from the get-go. Terry, you know, and we're in our last few minutes here. Again, the importance of the background check, advice to the chiefs on you know, what they need to do from the top.
Well, I think this centers around expectations. You have to levy expectations and you have to hold people accountable to those expectations. And I think that goes from top of the organization to the bottom. Every level needs to understand what's expected of them, and there has to be consequences. You know, it can't be just empty rhetoric out there. I think that's the only way that everyone, regardless of where they sit in an organization, understands what they're about, and they come to work each and every day knowing what their charge is, and I think that's incredibly important. Be engaged, and don't be ambivalent about, you know, this is what I expect of you, and I'm going to hold you to that.
Awesome. Well, guys, you know, Mark, we're always, I know I'm always asking Terry. I asked Terry, I think twice before, we got to get Mark McNeil on the show, and he's like, well, he's out of town. You know, the other one, I think we missed you twice. So I was so happy when he said he was going to bring you on. When we brought up this topic, Cope, I'm telling you, I thought of you before I could get the words out. Terry's like, we got to get Cope on here. And I said, and Terry's like, what do you think about Mike Baldree? I'm like, yeah, Mike Baldree would be great. And I'm like, I got to get David Rhodes on here because David doesn't put up with anybody's shit. and I don't mean that in a bull. David does. You know what? You're either going to love the job and be a good person, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and he doesn't give up on people, but people that don't respect the job, he has no respect for. I love that. I love that because that's where I'm at. If you don't love the job just a little bit, then we got no use for you. And David, I love what you do, man. I love your whole attitude towards the fire service is one we should just, bottle up and teach at every fire academy. So, but Terry, you want to take us home, brother?
Yeah. So, looking for our listeners, if anybody wants to get a hold of David, if anybody needs to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Social media, of course. Go to the Georgia Smoke Diver website, www.georgiasmokediver.com, and there's links to all our emails and stuff on there. Or heck, just call me direct. I'm not shy with my number. It's 678-776-5273.
All right, thank you, sir. Mike, what about you? How can we get in contact with you if anybody has any questions?
Well, social media, I'm all over the place between Instagram and Facebook, but through our association pages, you can call me here at the fire station. But as David said, my number is not private at all, and 817-223-5298. Anyone can give me a shout anytime, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being on this panel with you guys today. This has been great.
And Mike, hey, real quick, let me jump in there. Mike, please tell Chief Greaser we appreciate, him allowing you to jump on there with us. He's a great boss and does some great things for you. So thank you.
I certainly will. I certainly will. And in fact, Chief Greaser actually did a thesis paper over social media several years back. And he's been the forefront leader in bringing that social media to our department. So it's been great for us, for sure.
Perfect.
And then, John, how can somebody get a hold of you if they have any comments or questions for you?
I'm right down there at Station 7, Truck 7, and I'll be there until I die again. So that's where I'm at. And it's Fire Academy also, NCTC.
All right, Mark?
You can email me at mmcneil@cityoflewisville.com. Don't social media me. It might be 3 months before I got it, so.
You can contact me. I'm at tmcgrath@cityoflewisville.com. You can get a hold of Chief Lasky at 5alarmleadership@gmail.com. You can look us up on Facebook, Twitter, or the internet. You can find all of us at cityoflewisville.com. Make it easy for you. Our next show for Chief Lasky and myself will be December 20th, and you can catch a great Hump Day Hangout show each and every Wednesday, 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and you get a chance to hear some great people and interact with some great people. In closing, please keep the men and women serving in our own forces in your thoughts and prayers, and remember, never forgetting means never forgetting. Thank you very much.